With here. Oh, here we go. 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 You guys know me. I wait until we're like really totally online. Like we got to be for sure, like super on, like we're extra on. And then I'm like, okay, the internet has decided. I wait until I see myself. I don't mess around. And I have seen myself. I have seen myself and it is good. All right. Now I'm feeling okay. Now I'm feeling okay. All right. Wonderful. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, if that's what's going on where you're at. Good evening. Good morning. It's weird that I do my time zone third. It is, but I do my time zone third. It's morning where I'm at. I'm in California and it's morning here. So I'm morninging it up. This is a morning show. I said that before. This is a morning show. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying healthy. Hope everything's great. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. ZT.com, our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITTEA.com. Their tea rules. You know, their tea kind of rules because tea in general kind of rules. And their tea, it really rules. They make amazing teas. Definitely hit it up. You can get their tea wholesale because of the pandemic. I recommend the raspberry pecan. I recommend some of their smoky black teas for a little oomph in the morning. ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Show them some love. They supply the tea for this show, and they should really be supplying the tea for everybody because good tea is crucial. They make good tea, and they're a good company. Wins all around. That's all I see. Triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. They make topical pain oil that really, really helps. I've been putting it on my neck. You guys know I got in a bad car accident in 2013. This oil helps my neck more than anything else has ever helped my neck before. That's not an embellishment. So they make topical pain oil. Works great for burns, cuts, stiff necks. You get the idea. Triageoil.com. Maybe you're thinking, Ron, what about the CBD oil that you can ingest? You got me covered? Yes, I do. RareNaturalsCBD.com. That's Rare Naturals with an S, CBD.com. You can get natural CBD oil that you can put under your tongue. You can put it in a beverage. It works wonders. I drink it right after a workout, or if I feel a headache coming on, I will have some of the CBD oil. And it really prevents my headaches. I usually don't get the headache after that. I feel a little like, I feel a headache coming on. I'll have some of that, and it helps significantly. And I'm a headache guy. I get headaches a lot. I've always been a headache guy for a long time. I don't know when it started hitting me. I want to say like college it started with the headaches. But Rare Naturals with an SCBD.com. Best part, use the promo code Lucy at checkout, Lucy, Lucy at checkout, and you get 30% off your order. How amazing is that? Promo code Lucy, 30% off your order. RareNaturalsCBD.com. Stock up on some CBD oil. All right, without further ado, I am super excited to talk to my guest today. I've been following him on Twitter for a while. He is SocialistMMA on Twitter. So please do follow him. His tweets are very funny and they're very insightful. And he's one of my favorite people to follow. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. And we're going to be learning more about him because he's exactly what the handle implies. He is Nick, the Socialist MMA guy. What's up, Nick?
So Ron, happy to talk some shit with you today.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you. I'm stoked to talk to you. We got some fun stuff to talk about. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you because I am very curious about MMA and every activity surrounding it, but I'm not a connoisseur by any means, and I don't. So I apologize in advance if my questions are just very, very elementary because I interviewed a boxer once years ago. This is back when I had a radio show in Nashville, and I interviewed a professional boxer. Really knew his stuff. And I was really intrigued to learn more, but I felt like my questions were just so goofy and clueless. Like it was obvious I didn't know great questions.
That's how I feel when I talk about almost any other sport other than combat sport. Like especially because I'm black. People assume I know what I'm talking about when it comes to basketball. I used to back in the day when I used to play, but people talk about like playoffs basketball. I'm like, yeah, LeBron is good. That was a great play by them. Like that's me on any other sport, so I get it.
Well, that's an
And
accurate observation. LeBron is in fact good.
yeah, it's just very basic observations like that. So I'm very
See,
glad I have the platform I have because I can talk about martial arts. Because one thing I'm happy that the left got warmed to the last few years is we got to arm up, right? So I'm telling people like, man, that gun's not always going to be there with you. So leftists not only need to arm up, they also need to learn martial arts. They also need to be able to handle these engagement with these crazy right wingers we are seeing. Like I see people have these live streams, and these people are ready to fight. The Proud Boys, they're ready to fight, and I'm not trying to shoot everybody. Like you can't be ready to shoot everybody. Not every situation will call for that. So I'm like, man,
well,
it doesn't hurt to learn. You don't have to be a professional fighter. It's just good to
sure.
have in your skill set, right?
I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's funny. I had this activist on, and I always feel like activists are always like the biggest step ahead of the curb when it comes to everything. They're always
Yeah,
a few steps ahead of everyone else because they're just really on the ground. And this guy, he was based in North Carolina. I'd imagine he still is. I should actually have him back. It's been years, but again, this was back when I had my radio show. This was even before this show, but I had him on as a guest, and we were just talking about a lot of the direct action he was involved with at the time. And this would have been back in like 2015 or so. And I said to him, I said, what's some advice that you have for people just in general and especially for lefties and stuff like that? And the first thing he said, learn self-defense. That was
yep.
the first thing he said. And it kind of, to be honest with you, it caught me a little off guard. I wasn't expecting that to be, but he just said, learn self-defense. It's something you got to know. It's something that you might need at some point. Learn self-defense. I'm very much an anti-violent guy. I abhor violence unless it is, self-defense. Obviously, that's different. I actually don't consider self-defense violence. I think they're two very different things. But I see the practical value in being able to defend yourself. And I do not practice what I preach because I don't know jack shit about MMA or anything else. I wouldn't know what to do in any circumstance.
The thing is, like, just having that knowledge, it helps the way you carry yourself. It helps your self esteem and everything you do in your life. Because I can tell you how confident I am if I was to get into a combat situation with somebody, but I don't have a lot of street fighting experience. It don't ever escalate to that point because I'm so confident in my ability to defend myself, my ability to de-escalate. It never even comes to that point. Like people step up to me, and I'm like, I'm so confident. I'm like, bro, are you crazy right now? Like they can kind of see your confidence, and that alone could kind of help defuse a lot of situations. Because there are a lot of situations where I've been in where I'm like, man, I guess I'm about to throw down right now. There was a guy. This happened last year. I always have solidarity with the workers. So there was this guy who we was at Chipotle. He got there first, and he was like yelling at the workers there because they didn't have the salsa ready, and so he like lost his shit. Like he was an older Mexican
But
guy.
did he just have like one tortilla chip with him? Like, what's going
I'm
on?
like, bro, it's
This is
not that big of a deal.
unacceptable.
No, it was the corn salsa. It had no. I'm like, bro, it's not that big of a deal. So he up there yelling,
Here, I'll be
and
him. You be you. You be you. Where's this salsa? I'm so hungry.
I was sitting there looking at him like, is he joking? Like, cause he was so mad, it made no sense at how mad he was. And the people that was working there, they was 16, 17 years old. They had their first job. I remember being in that position. So I'm like, immediately I'm feeling bad for them because they have some crazy guy yelling at them. So I'm sitting there, I'm second in line. I'm like, dude, I'm like, shut up, bro. Are you serious right now? And I literally like squared up because I'm thinking like, this dude's so unhinged. He might be ready to swing at me. But like as soon as I checked him, I kind of square up at him. He kind of backed down. Like you see that happens a lot with bullies. I was actually probably shocked. He kind of like, man, mind your own business. Then he paid and left. I'm kind of like, okay, so that didn't go the way I thought it would go. But you see that happen a lot. If you know you can defend yourself, you know you can stand up to bullies. They don't really have an answer for you. So I actually haven't been in a lot of situations, I always call out bullying when I see it, just like that situation. But I actually don't get into a lot of fights, and it's kind of weird. I'm like, man, people don't really want to get into that kind of conflict. If
Well, I mean, I can't. I mean, you're sitting down right now, so I can't really. But you have some fairly broad looking shoulders. How tall are you?
I'm five. I'm not the tallest dude. I'm 5'8". When I used to compete at featherweight. So I used to compete at 145.
Okay.
Right now I got the COVID-15 because all the gyms been shut
Wait, you
down.
you have it?
No. I don't have the COVID. I have the COVID-15. The plus 15 you gain by quarantining.
I didn't. All right, I misheard you.
So I've
All
been
right.
trying to like get back in training and just doing my own thing, but it's hard because I haven't done any like real training for like a year. Because I was actually traveling helping Bernie in his campaign out before COVID. So I already went like 2-3 months without doing that. Then COVID hit and then all the gyms were shut down. They have some open gym classes, but Kansas City is one of the hot spots. And I'm like, bro, I don't trust you. I ain't about to train with you dirty people. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. Um, I've been kind of out of training, but I'm still really sharp because I always do my street Muay Thai. I hit pad with some friends. We about to set up a gym at one of my friends' basement, which was gonna be lit. Cause that's why I'm used to having a gym. I used to training people, but right now it's been like a long stretch since I did some real sparring. I miss it. I need it for myself because if you read my tweets, man, I don't hide who I am. I admit I'm kind of crazy. So I need that.
Well,
I
have you ever
need
had to give
that
that
conflict.
disclaimer when somebody was messing with you? Were you ever just like, "Hey, I know how to defend myself, and I'm kind of crazy. Do you want to continue this, or do you want
People
to walk
be
away?"
it's always funny when I read criticisms of me because I'm like, bro, you guys are just telling people what I always tell people about myself as it is anyway. I already tell people I'm kind of crazy, so that's why I don't take bullshit well. I'm not made for politics. Like me having the platform I have is a complete accident. I should not have the platform I have because I'm kind of crazy, and that's kind of what drove me to get
That
into
should be
fighting.
your intro every time. You just like, "All right, guys, just so you know, I shouldn't have this platform. I'm kind of crazy." I think I'd
Yeah,
immediately want to check that out. I'd be like, "This guy. I want
because
to hear more of what he has to say."
I'm too passionate because I do get mad. I had that debate with Vosh and everyone was like, "Man, you was you if you made your points cross really better if you wasn't yelling." I'm like, "Man, I can't fucking help it." Like I'm passionate about what I talk about. It is what it
So
is.
I
So
admittedly don't know who that is. I think I
you're not
saw
missing nothing.
I follow
You're not
you.
missing.
I
You're not
don't know
missing
who that.
nothing. I didn't know who he was. He like the only our thing started because he featured one of my tweets on the video, and
Okay.
he was doing like a biting, like a vote shaming video, and
Okay.
he was calling out the politics of the left. So I think people misunderstood what was going on because people was like, "Man, we supposed to be debating." I'm like, "This is not a debate. He supposed to explain to me why I should vote for Joe Biden." And I went on his show. I kind of yelled at him, and it was kind of
Hmm.
funny. But anyway, he's not important. It's just I get these kind of criticisms all the time. I'm not the kind of person that just fall in line, especially the way the left been treated for the last few years. And I'm supposed to just fall in line, but I'm not that kind of guy. Like I'm spiteful, and I don't take bullshit towards my people. Like I'm almost to a fault. Like uh, in my family, we all come from combat sports. That's where I learned from. My dad was a boxing trainer. I had cousins that fought on TV boxing, so
Oh, no
it,
kidding,
it was
man.
it was like a thing, man.
It's a
You don't
family
vet
thing
for the
for you. Oh, wait,
yeah. I was
so
like
real quick, and then I want to get into some news and then talk more about you. But what? So, all right. a- Again, I don't know much. So what's the difference between like what they did and what you do? Like you do MMA. What's the
yes,
big
yeah.
difference between the type of boxing that they did and what you do?
See, I just had to take it to the next level because I always did boxing from day one. And then I remember this is when MMA started becoming popular. It was during the Ultimate Fighter days. It was like 2008. This is around the time I started going to college. And one of my roommate friends, he was a wrestler, and he was part of the wrestling team. He was like, "Hey, yo, we have this MMA club." So I was like, "Oh, cool." I actually watched. I see on TV before, so I did that, and I remember I was sparring with this little Vietnamese guy. Like he like way smaller than me, but he knew Muay Thai. He knew how to kick, and I always had good hands. I always knew how to box because I did it ever since I was a kid, ever since I was a child. So I was sparring with this guy. I'm not used to losing. Like I say that in a cocky way, but I just got a lot of experience. So I go with this guy who's way smaller than me. He's like kicking my ass. I mean, literally kicking my ass. I'm not used to dealing with kicks. He's throwing his leg kicks, body kicks. I'm like, fuck, dude, he's so fast. And ever since then, I fell in love with it from that day on. My dad and them, they focus on boxing, and my dad being the natural martial artist that he is, he picked up jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai in his late age, so he's a dangerous 65-year-old man. So I kind of fell in love with that from there, and I coached at UMKC for a little bit. You know, they all had their different clubs. I never had opportunity to go pro or do any of that stuff, but I trained with pro fighters. I trained with Jason High. He used to fight for UFC. I don't remember his name, but he's a guy. He won Golden Gloves national level. I used to spar with him all the time. So I've been in there with real fighters. I just never, because I was working all the time. I was hustling, bro. I
No,
never had a
sure,
chance to
man.
like really go pro. So, but
Well,
I still love the game.
a high school friend of mine that I knew in high school, and then we kind of just lost touch over the years. But he's a professional, and I guess he still is. I mean, I guess you can do it a long time because there's different age groups and stuff, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, once
he's
you
in his mid-30s now, but
yeah,
I think
they're
he's still
different
doing it.
classes.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
because you can
he's
fight an amateur, but once you go pro, you kind of locked in on going pro. So you can just
yeah.
be a amateur 30-year-old fighter fighting clubs. That's what I did in my early 20s. I was fought some. Remember, this is before MMA became the giant event it is now. So now you got much more organized local events, even in Kansas City. But back then, you would find organized circuits in like Las Vegas, California, New York, big markets. But in Kansas City, it was like, oh, I guess we're going to this bar, this shady bar. We're
Oh,
gonna fight.
okay.
So it was like never. It wasn't an established market back then. So that's why people like, where you got a little film. I still got to film my old fights. I just post photos I had, but it wasn't like cameras everywhere. It's like we go into the cage and we were fighting, we were coaching. It was fun. That's what I did in my early 20s. So I was juggling that, trying to go to school, work. So that was pretty much all my time back in my early 20s. So it takes a lot of your life away. So it's been a long time since I competed, but I've been recently falling back in love with it. So it is a very important part of my life. I realize when I don't do it, like whenever I take long breaks, I see my sanity start to break. I start to get,
Mm.
I feel my depression start to pick up, and I wouldn't even tell you why. I'm like, man, I feel like shit. I don't feel like doing anything today, and then I'll start training again. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's just because I wasn't doing something that brings me passion, and it doesn't even have to be just martial arts. Like whether it's you in comedy, or whether it's someone who like to paint, or someone who like to video edit, anything you want to do. I always tell people
Well,
just find that thing, and
physical
that will,
activity really helps you too, though. I mean,
yeah,
like physical
yeah,
activity, because I mean, it releases the dopamine and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah.
I try to make sure I go for a walk, jog every single day because, first of all, essential sunlight is exactly that, essential sunlight. Like you need to just, get out and get fresh air. And I know in the time of quarantine and social distancing, it's difficult, but you still have to make it happen. You wear a mask and you do your thing, and you go on a jog or a run or a bike ride or whatever. So I think that's a big part of it too. I do. I play an Irish sport called hurling that there's a good chance you've never heard of because most people haven't. But
I
but I
heard, but I
love
can't
it.
tell you that much about it.
So it's basically lacrosse meets football, kind of. But here's the deal. It's one of the oldest sports in the world, arguably the oldest sport in the world. Like there's disputes on what actually came first, but it's pretty much the oldest sport in the world. So you see remnants of other sports within it because it came first. So you have a stick that you use that's a kind of weird shaped stick. It almost looks like a field hockey stick, kind of, but it's a little different. And the reason it's kind of a weird shaped stick is because back in the day, they used axes to play, which I don't know how
Yeah,
exactly. I guess
that
they
sounds
used
savage.
axes and then randomly they decided, nobody needs to die for us to do this. Let's not use axes anymore and do something else. But they used to use axes, so the stick kind of looks a little weird, like it could have been an axe at one point, but it's wooden typically, and there's a little ball. So yeah, it's like field hockey meets lacrosse, kind of meets football because there's like a field goal. And anyway, so all right, so let's hop into
dude.
it. Is such a fun game.
It sounds fun. Just based on you explain how you explain it, sounds fun to me, bro.
Oh, it's so, well, and that's how I got into it. A buddy of mine, I don't know how he got into it, but he introduced me to it. And I just thought, I want to play this. So I got a stick. I just bought a stick. I bought my wife a stick too. And we just learned how to play. And it's not super popular in the United States, but most cities have clubs. Like I'm sure Kansas City has a club. Los Angeles has a club. Pretty much any major city in the country is going to have like a club. It may or may not be super big, but it's going to be there. And so I've gone to the club to their drills a couple times. I've never competed, but sometimes people get a little intense with the competition. And my buddy who introduced me to it. He's cracked a few ribs before, and I'm not looking to do any of that. So I'd want to make sure the people. It's just fun, friendly games. I'm not looking to.
In my age now, I just want something. Yeah. At my age now, I just want to chill and do something, get my heart rate up. Back in my early days, back in my early 20s, I used to be a hothead that took everything to the next level. But now it's like, man, can we take a chill pill, man? I'm just want to get sweat. I just want to get sweat going. So I definitely feel that. That looks fun, though. I might have looked into that because I'm always trying to do stuff like that. So,
dude. If you check it out, let me know, and I can direct you on where to get.
I'm always doing.
Hey, drop me an email. I'll send you. So there is a company. This is random. The company is located in South Carolina. I mean, I guess that's kind of a random location. I don't know that, but that's where the place where they make all the Gaelic sports equipment here in the United States. It's this one company, and they produce sticks. You can buy the ball is called a slitter. That's how you pronounce it. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I might actually be mispronouncing it, but you can get those there, and they're cheap. They're like $3 a piece or something like that. But I usually get a couple because eventually you lose them. They're like tennis balls basically. Or well, they're actually closer to a baseball than a tennis ball, but they're their own thing. And, inevitably you lose them, you lose them in the woods or something. So you get a couple of those, you get a stick, and that's really all you need. I mean, if you're going to compete, you'll need like a helmet and some stuff like that. But usually if you're in like a club and you join a team, they'll have that stuff. So, but anyway, all right. So I got to know you first. And so we'll do the news second now. we just flipped it today. We just flipped it today. That's fine. It works for me. I don't mind. But so there have been a lot of protests as of recent. And yesterday in my community of Pasadena, California, there were protests specifically for Anthony McLean. And that's because he was shot by police about a week ago. And they released the footage is in quotes, that answers absolutely nothing. The police are saying he had a gun that he pointed at them. We don't even know that he for sure had a gun. We don't know if he had a gun. There's no evidence that says without a doubt this man had a gun. There's no evidence
or anything like that.
Huh?
So no body cameras on the police officers?
So the body cameras that they released, which was heavily edited and narrated, they claimed they're like, there's the gun, and they circled his left hand. Now he's running. He's running from them. His hands are up like this, and it's from a far distance. You can't tell if anything is in this man's hand. I mean, could there have been something potentially? You can't tell for sure. When he initially goes to run, there's something in his like pants that looks like it could be a gun. It also, other people are saying it was a gold belt buckle. Personally, I couldn't tell for sure what it was. I don't know what it was, but it happened so fast and he's running. They immediately go to shoot the guy. That's their immediate reaction, go to shoot the guy. And then of course, when they do, the cameras are off. One of the cops covered their camera. So it's very, 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 very suspect, to say the least. And we had to wait over a week for this footage. And after the footage was released, it answered 0 questions. 0 questions.
Yeah, see,
So it was shady beyond comprehension. So yesterday they did a hearing where they were deciding whether or not they were going to have civilian oversight for police. And there was a protest. I want to share some of this. So here's part of the protest. So I know you can't hear it terribly well. I was just sort of, I was part of the protest. I was part of the march, and I was, just kind of showing it from my, from my phone. But
yeah,
what's interesting to me, this is what happened throughout the march. People throughout Old Town, people were out on patios eating, they have patios open and whatnot. People were stopping and they were listening and they were applauding. And some people even joined the march, which is sort of an uplifting moment. It gave you a little bit of hope as you're marching and you see your city applauding you and joining you. Now, I will say that it wasn't all good. Here's a video I'll share next. Now, an attorney friend of mine told me to make sure I point out the fact that Hi,
I'm only Brett and in this video, I'm going to show you how anyone can quickly and easily create dual videos.
It just started an ad automatically. Here, hold up. So my buddy, who's an attorney, made me give a quick disclaimer here. A truck did weave in and out of the protesters. And with the way this guy was driving, I don't know what else he could have been doing other than trying to antagonize the protesters. The protesters were on the street marching. It was a peaceful march, a peaceful demonstration. And all of a sudden, this guy just swerves. He was about maybe a foot from me. He just swerves across the protesters. I don't know what he was doing, if not trying to antagonize the protesters. He swerved all the way to the right side. He did not make a right-hand turn. So it's not like, oh, maybe this guy had an emergency that he was trying to get to, and he made a kind of poor, reckless judgment call while driving. I don't know what else this guy was doing, if not trying to antagonize the protesters or worse. And the footage that I captured is not very high quality. The reason for that is because with one hand, I was filming, so I was a little shaky, because with the other hand, I was trying to shield a young girl who got separated from her family. There were a lot of families here, by the way. So there were a lot of children when this guy decided to do this. There was a young girl who was by herself. She was, very, very small. And I noticed she was just kind of close to the truck. So I had my other arm out to kind of shield her. And you hear me at one point in the video yell, "There's a little girl." The reason I yell that is because, she was a little kid and she was just kind of running around. She didn't necessarily, but she ran kind of close to the truck. The guy who heard me yell that just sort of scooped her up and then brought her back to, the person she was with, her guardian, her parent, or, whoever it was she was with. But so here's that footage. Here is that footage. Again, I apologize for the quality of it, but I told you why. Little girl. So there you hear me yell, which, without the proper context, hearing a weird-looking dude like me yell "little girl," that's kind of creepy if the right context is not known. But here, so we don't really need the audio here because I basically just say, but this is what happened. This is the company. So it's a router company. It's a plumbing company. I looked them up. They're located right in Glendale. And this guy, so again, he just went across traffic. When I got in front of the thing, he started moving forward again. So he went across traffic. He did not make a right at any point. So this guy, we were marching there. He just went all across traffic, cutting off the protesters. So not everyone was a good apple, so to speak, throughout this protest, but most people were stopping. They were listening. They were applauding. And some people even joined the march. And here's what happened as a result of all that. Now, Pasadena City Council met yesterday, and they met for hours because there were hours and hours of public comments around this, demanding there be civilian oversight of police. And here's what happened. Pasadena unanimously passes new police oversight model. After 8 hours of impassioned, often bitter deliberation, the city council created an 11-member civilian commission and an independent police auditor, reshaping how the city oversees its police department. Is this enough? Probably not. Well, definitely not. It's not enough. But this is a step. And this is, a small victory. Now, we got to still stay militant because we got to find out how this is going to be unrolled. If they just unroll this and allow a bunch of insiders to infiltrate, i.e. if the police are overseeing themselves, it's just going to be, as someone else put it, it just turns into a glorified complaint board and nothing else. But if it's unrolled properly and there is, proper independent oversight, which they are saying there's an independent party involved here, it's a step in starting to fix this systemic disease. But again, I don't think it goes quite far enough. I think we're at the point you need to defund the police. You need to have heavy civilian oversight that's very extensive and the community is heavily involved. And I think you need to go a step further. We need to reimagine what exactly a police officer is. Because a police officer, as we know it, is a completely failed concept. It cannot continue the way it is. We need to just kind of reinvent what law enforcement in our life means.
Yeah, the police as we know it is a still relatively recent thing, right?
Sure.
Usually for the vast majority of history and mankind, they always did had community policing in some form, whether it be the government will sponsor that activity or whether the community will come together itself to establish those kind of protocols. And back in the day, back in early civilization, it was mostly the churches that would run those kind of things. But the concept would be kind of similar now, where you have our community that will have their own form of policing. So when you say, if you want to say get rid of all policing, that's not what we are necessarily saying. We're saying that we need to turn the power back over to our communities because we have white police officers who not even from our neighborhoods that they'll come in our neighborhood, they'll terrorize us. They don't really care about like the actual results of their policing and what they're actually trying to accomplish. And now you see now with these protests, it shows there was a story that just came out how the police pretty much gave up policing the far right protesters. And these are the protesters that are the most violent. You can say whatever you want about the looting situation, but if you look at the people who are actually dying, these people are getting killed at far right protests. And the police are not tear gassing these people. They're not going out after these people. And there was
in some cases, they refer to them as friendlies.
Yes.
And in New Mexico, they called them friendlies.
I wish I remember the exact location, but I saw a tweet not too long ago where there was a clash between Proud Boys, some far-right protesters, and Black Lives Matter group. And the Proud Boy group were being loud, belligerent, but the police were literally just going after the Black Lives Matter protest. And there's also the fact that we already know that law enforcement as a whole were already infiltrated by far-right white supremacist groups and militias.
Oh, KKK members, straight up KKK members. Yeah. So, well, Ferguson, bringing it back to where you're based in Kansas City.
Yes,
Ferguson
I know all about that.
Showed us that. They showed us, oh, these KKK members are given badges and guns.
Yeah. So when you hear liberals, for example, talk about reforming the police, how do you form a group that's been taken over by white supremacist groups?
I love the way you said, not to interrupt, but I love the way you just said liberals. You said it as if, like, it was like if the way somebody said a word could just be an eye roll. It was the way you just said liberals right there.
I used to call myself
that.
So
liberal, it's almost like you got slightly tired just saying it. Liberals.
Yes. Because they drive me crazy because they will put Black Lives Matter blocks behind their speech. I'm talking about Elizabeth Warren. But they will continue to support massive military budgets. They'll continue to support the police state as we know it. They will continue to support ICE. They continue to support these forces of oppression that is used against our communities. And this is the conversation I have where a lot of white progressives get mad at me because I call them out. Well, I'm like, okay, so you want to support Biden, you want to support a cop and Kamala Harris because that's comfortable for you. what threat actually do they have on your life? Because I know people whose lives have been ruined by civil asset forfeiture and those kind of policies that the Democratic Party they still endorse to this day. So give me your opposition party, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy to take on Trump.
No kidding.
So people always complain to me because I don't go after Trump. But I'm like, why would I go after them first when I've been ruled by Democrats? Kansas City is blue. Kansas City is pretty progressive. Cleaver is a Democrat. Like we had Democratic mayors. Like people who say we should. The people that only. I guess you can focus on Republicans, especially if they hurt you in your lives. But if you're a progressive and you're on the left and you only worry about that, if you only worry about that, you're missing a part of the puzzle. That's my
exactly. You're absolutely right because I mean, and just to, I mean, I would say to clarify, Republicans are extremely dangerous. I mean, I think there's no doubt about that. But for people who are, you know, looking at it from the point of view, the socialist point of view, the anti, basically it's a systemic disease point of view, which is the point of view I'm coming at it from, which is the point of view you're coming at it from. The horribleness of the Republicans is a given. We know that. What's more interesting, and maybe more interesting is not the right way to put it, what's more essential to understanding, I think, is that how did they get to be this way? How are the Republicans allowed to operate this way where they are, as Noam Chomsky would say, and I think he's absolutely right, one of the greatest threats to humankind? There is no other democratic experiment that has anything close to the Republican Party. The Republican Party in the United States makes the Tories in England look like Boy Scouts. And the Tories are not great. I mean, they're terrible. But how are the Republicans allowed to be this ridiculous? Well, they're allowed to be this ridiculous because the Overton window in the United States is so far to the right, they needed to buy a new camera to zoom out far enough. Because the Democrats are a right-wing party too. And because the system is bought and controlled by the same owners, the same ruling donor class. So when you have a system like that, the entire system is a problem. And the Republicans are just like at the head of that ugliness. But Republicans wouldn't be able to be this terrible if the Democrats weren't as ineffective and ridiculous as they are. Similarly, the Democrats wouldn't be able to be as ineffective and ridiculous as they are if the Republicans weren't so terrible. And that's bipartisanship, baby. That's how they exist. I did a short video on it where I was like, bipartisanship debunked in 2 minutes. And it's like, they need each other. And this is what they need. They say when they need each other. They say it takes a Republican wing and a Democrat wing for the American eagle to fly so it can shit on all of our heads.
Preach, brother. And I love how you brought up Noam Chomsky. I love how you brought that up because they love to bring up Chomsky when every 4 years when he says we must vote for the lesser two evils. Why don't they ever listen to Chomsky when he says his other things that they don't find necessarily comfortable? Like
where
he said
calls
earlier,
out the system.
Yes, and when he calls the Republican Party the most dangerous terrorist group in human history, I agree with him on that. So the people who think I don't go after Republicans enough, you gotta realize my criticism of the Democratic Party is they are like Republicans. So when you want to quote Chomsky when it comes to lesser two evil, which is a legitimate conversation to be had, but you treat Republicans like they're your friends. You had John Kasich, who's part of this evil group that we were talking about with Chomsky, right?
He's just politically, he's no different than Trump. He just talks nicer.
He
just talks nicer. I mean, it's such a facade.
So who's more anti-Republican? Me, a guy who would never in a million years invite John Kasich to speak at a convention I will be responsible for, or the people who want to buddy up with George Bush and John Kasich? The people who say, welcome to the resistance, Dick Cheney. Because this is the point I made earlier. Why are they able to buddy up with the Lincoln Project? Would the Lincoln Project be buddying up with us right now if Bernie Sanders was the nominee? There's no way that would happen, right?
No.
There's no way that would happen. They team up with Joe Biden, not because they are the adults in the room and they are making a sacrifice of their beliefs and their morals. They're not for 1 second. The Lincoln Project and Joe Biden are closer to each other politically than I am with Joe Biden.
You know what's funny? I
You
said
realize
that.
that?
Have you ever used that to like refute a troll? Because
Yeah. That's when you get blocked. That's when I
was
get blocked.
Oh, I mean, if people want to block me, go ahead. I don't care. But like,
I'm just saying that's when it happens.
one time, a Biden, one of those Biden stands was coming at me, and I was just saying how, pretty much no matter what happens, like the American people, like we lost, and he goes, well, Biden's the nominee, so I guess I lost less. And I was also saying in that tweet, I was saying how, like, I think Trump's going to win again, because I don't think Trump's going anywhere unless something really changes significantly between now and November. I just objectively don't think Trump's going anywhere, especially if nothing's done about all the people that are going to get kicked out of their homes. I mean, that's just like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how people spend so much time wagging their finger at people on the left or people on the all these different groups. Meanwhile, if 40 million people lose their homes in a month, which is on track to happen if nothing's done, it's just an objective truth that with that amount of voter suppression, when you have mail-in ballots that are going to be the big way to do things because of a pandemic, a GOP incumbent is just not going to lose. It's just not possible. It doesn't matter how I feel about Joe Biden. It doesn't matter how I feel about Donald Trump. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It's just the way it's going to be. And nobody seems to be alarmed by this. Nobody, like I don't, all this time. And if you're one of Biden stands, all this time you spend wagging your finger at people on social media, you should wag your finger at elected officials to do something about this housing crisis. You should be doing that anyway, because it's morally repulsive. 40 million people should not be losing their homes because they can't work because of the pandemic. Nobody should be losing their homes, period, because housing should be a freaking human right. And that's why I'm against private property. But that's a different discussion for a different day. We're not going to go that far deep into the rabbit hole. But anyway, but getting back to, well, let's go here next, because I can't wait to talk to you about this, because, since we got on electoral politics and you brought up the far right, this transitions into yesterday, Richard Spencer, or maybe it was 2 days ago, but recently Richard Spencer said he is going to be voting for Joe Biden. And you had my favorite tweet of the Twitterverse, at least that I've seen. I can't say all the Twitterverse because I don't see every single tweet that gets published. But out of all the tweets I've seen, you were my favorite, because you tweeted, Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat. Right? That was
Yes. And I like doing that all the time.
That was funny. Paul, that was hilarious.
My boy Paul came up with those lines.
Well, good job, Paul.
I like expanding on those because, like, it's
Why didn't Paul? Wait. Why didn't Paul tweet it? Why did you tweet it?
We always tweet different variations of it, right?
Oh, okay.
So I tweet like Kamala Harris is a Steve Mnuchin Democrat, right?
Okay.
I tweet that Nancy Pelosi is a Margaret Thatcher Democrat, and these are funny jokes. But the whole point of it is I'm trying to it's more serious than a lot of people think it is, because I'm drawing parallels. The whole point is there's some people that is acknowledged as being bad, and it's not a question that they're bad. But then there are other people who are just as terrible as those people, like Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, but they're not considered bad. So when I do these parallels, it's not just simple, hey, I'm saying this guy is like a bad person. I'm bringing the parallels together. So when I say Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat, what I mean by that is that Richard Spencer may be trolling with his support of Joe Biden. But who will Richard Spencer be proud of more than Joe Biden? Because who done more damage to the black community over the last 40 years as a public servant other than Joe Biden? There is a question, who done more damage to the black community, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? So if you're Richard Spencer, do you want someone in charge who's a bumbling fool, who's incompetent at suppressing the black community? Someone who, even though he may be full of shit, Trump go out and he brags about black employment numbers. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, he has plans implemented that suppresses the black community, like the crime bill, the bankruptcy bill, which I've been personally affected by. That's a story for another day. People were asking me why I'm so mad at the Democratic Party. That's something that affected me. That's something that affected almost every person I know. These policies, the trickle down economics that Joe Biden pushes. So Donald Trump has done a lot of damage to the Black community. Republican parties have done a lot of damage to the Black community. But Black wealth tanked under Barack Obama and Joe Biden because they adapt Republican-like policies during the housing crisis. Now, what liberals say all the time, I say, hey, yo, Joe Biden and Barack Obama tanked Black wealth. Oh, well, George Bush was in there before, and he led to the financial situation that led to that. That's true, but George Bush did not force Barack Obama to bail out the banks instead of Black homeowners. Did George Bush hold a gun to Barack Obama's hand and force him to bail out the banks? Did he hold a gun to Barack Obama and the Democratic Party head when they did increase minimum wage during the whole time Barack Obama was president? So once again, that's a theme I always go to because I know who my enemy is. So it's a joke when I say Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat. But you see, there's also truth to that because I layer that, buddy. Because I layer that with Joe. There's a reason why Spencer would like him, even if he's halfway trolling, because he knows that Joe Biden and Kamala the cop will do his bidding when it comes to suppressing the marginalized classes, and the white liberal class will be quiet while he's doing it. So that's the best ally that Richard Spencer can ask for, right? Like, why would he side with the loud MAGA idiots instead of the liberal class that doing the work for them? Instead of hearing my story, well, I could tell them why.
This is the mic, man. This is you.
I could tell them my story, but instead of doing that, they mute me. They block me. They don't care, bro. When I tell them that Joe Biden still support the new Jim Crow, and he refuses to legalize marijuana, and that will lock up Black people for more prison labor, they legitimately don't care. Like I bring this up in good faith with them, like, guys, we gotta do something. Help put Joe Biden. They're like, no, they don't care. So I'm like, bro, if they approach this in a different situation, I wouldn't have the takeaway I did. Imagine if they gave the mic to Nina Turner. Imagine if they gave the mic to Cornel West instead of John Kasich. Then I might be more easy on the Democratic Party. But what reason do I have to be easy on them, Ron? I have no reason.
You're asking the wrong guy.
I'm just saying that's my.
I don't have an answer for you, my friend.
But I can rant on this kind of stuff all day. So it's like this is the kind of stuff I talk about. I want people to understand. So when I make that tweet, I'm glad that people like it. I'm glad people find it funny, but there's a point to it. Every single time I make one of those names, there's a point to it. Like I remember I had one. One of my favorite ones was Kamala Harris is a Steve Mnuchin Democrat, and then I'll bring that up, and then liberals will get so mad at me. And I love this name. I love putting on names out there because it forces them to ask that question. Because they're like, why would he even say that? I'm like, oh, since you asked.
well, here's the thing. I think that some people that ask that question, they genuinely don't know. They're genuinely asking that question. And a lot of them get pissed off at you, or get pissed off at me, or get pissed off at whoever else. But I think some of them actually kind of have a moment and they take a step back and then they show up to a march and then they sign up for the DSA or the SA or the Green Party or whatever else, or they sign up for, a climate action group, or they sign up for, whatever it is, their local Black Lives Matter chapter, whatever it may be. They realize that, oh, this is a systemic disease. This isn't so much Republican versus Democrat as much as it's us versus the freaking oligarchy.
And the people who criticize me for being divisive, because I get that criticism, especially from the progressives who fold for Joe Biden. Man, you people will be surprised how many messages I get from people who former resist, vote blue, no matter who. I get messages from people like, man, you actually kind of help open my eyes a little bit. I get messages from right wingers. I get messages from right wingers that say, hey, I don't like Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party, but actually you're kind of progressive and I get in line. I literally, I don't want to post all those films because I like to leave it private, but I posted a few of them. I get those kind of messages where I get right wingers just say, your style of politics, I'd be more for it. I don't like Democrat Party. So the people who think I'm divisive because I go after them, their favorite oligarch of choice, who's the real divisive one? The person that unite the working class, or the people that want to just call people deplorables and engage in partisan politics? Who's the divisive one? Is it me or is it them?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're doing the bidding of the establishment, really, by having sacred cows. You should criticize the system as a whole and make strategic choices. And, my position has always been and will continue to be, if you voter shame from any direction, you're just completely missing the big picture, because the problem is the system that has forced these two horrific choices upon us, not the voters who have to figure out how to deal with it and have to make the judgment call, one way or another. So it's like, when you're voter shaming, it's the least constructive thing you can possibly do at any point. The least constructive thing. And I've gotten some of those messages too, man. I mean, I've gotten those messages of people, hey, Ron, I'm kind of on the right, but I like you because you call out the corruption where you see it. You don't care what's next to their name. You don't have sacred cows. You call out corruption where you see it. And I'm more open to progressive ideas now because of shows like yours. And to me, it's like that's a much bigger win than just patting your echo chamber on the back.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the game is about. It's about winning over the other side and forming the coalition. Because I think we have the coalition. It's just our biggest problem is the media continue to trying to separate us and divide and conquer. So that's my main goal when it comes to unite the left and all that. So and that's why I try to get across my page. I'm like ruthless to the power, but when it comes to everyday people, I want to have those conversations. I want to win them over and bring them on my side. So I think that's the main goal should be.
Let's just stick on the Richard Spencer thing for a hot minute. So here's what he had to say about it. Liberals are clearly more competent. This is Richard Spencer speaking. The MAGA alt-right movement is over. I made mistakes. Trump is an obvious disaster, but mainly the paradigm contained flaws that we are now able to perceive, and it needs to end. So be patient. We'll have another day in the sun. We need to recover and return in the new form. I think what he's basically saying there is, hey, there will be another time for overt white supremacy. We'll have another moment where we can be overtly white supremacists, but we need to subtly be white supremacists for a little while until we kind of rebrand, because he's the guy who puts on the suit. That's what Richard Spencer does, which is nothing original. That's the same thing David Duke did, and the same thing David Duke continues to do. And that's part of their, that's why David Duke was having people, hey, infiltrate, become a police officer. I mean, they've been doing that organized for years. Here's what Elsie says. I will never flip on my fundamental principles. My principles were never voting for the supposed lesser of two evils or sovereignty government, walking into certain defeat, blah, blah, blah. He has a quote there. Now, he says he regrets voting for Trump following the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. He did not like the interventionism either. He was against the Trump administration launching an airstrike on a Syrian airbase in 2017. So I guess he's against some imperialism, which I guess a broken clock is right twice a day. Isn't that the age-old saying? You know, it's like, but so I guess the reason I wanted to read this, some people are saying that he is just straight up trolling. Do you think he's trolling?
I think it's a combination of both, because in order to joke or in order to /troll, there has to be a little bit of truth in it. You can't just have a successful troll that's not any truth in it at all. So what I find funny about reading that and reading his statements is there's no love lost between me and Richard Spencer, but you know this is how the right wing continue to move the Overton window to the right, is that they have these line in the sand moments where they tell the Republican establishment, okay, we're not going with this at all, and we will not support you if you don't support our ideology. And they actually will believe that. That's what the basis of the Tea Party movement. That was essentially the Koch brothers take over, but that's still the fundamental idea, is that they actually draw the line in the sand. They tell the Republican establishment, okay, you're into what Spencer was saying. He said Trump is too pro-war. He is not not effective communicator for the white supremacist movement. So we got to abandon them. Right. Now, this is the problem I have with the left, and this is what the problem I have with the liberal class. What is that line in the sand for the left and the Democratic Party? Like, what is it will cause them to ever turn against the Democratic Party? Because if they're willing to back a guy like Biden, who was admittedly one of the most conservative Democrats in the 90s in the Senate, during the era of the king of neoliberals, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden was the most conservative.
You know, if you called him that, he'd think it was a compliment.
Yes, he would love it. He would love it. I love stroking their ego. So when I saw that they fell behind on Biden and the fact that he was a vocal advocate of the Iraq War, he still don't support legalizing marijuana, I'm like, oh, there's no line. There's nothing that the liberals wouldn't be okay with. They are rehabilitating George Bush, for example. So my response to the Richard Spencer, I'm not like I didn't forget about the original point, is that this is why the right is successful, because they have those lines in the sand that they draw, and they're able to move their leadership to the right by drawing the lines of sand. So what Spencer is saying, that he won't support MAGA, he won't support the Republican establishment unless they change. And that's how you get the party to move. You got to let them know that you're not willing to vote for them. And the progressive movement and liberals refuse to do that with the Democrat Party. So what happens? The right wing and the right wing activists, no matter what you want to call them, which I can call them a lot of names, but let's call them right wing activists. They successfully move the party to the right by doing what Richard Spencer is doing. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party follows them, even though there's a recent poll that showed that Joe Biden only has 5% Republican support. Yeah. So what is that about? So they're not moving right to get Republican voters. They being dragged by the Republican
They're moving
Party.
Right for their donors. See, yeah. You're absolutely right in everything you say. The one problem with that, and it's not like a problem as in like what you're saying, but I think the one problem structurally we have is, you know, everything you're saying about what they do on the right, where they're just like, okay, we're not going to support you. And that's the same thing the Tea Party did. They just said, hey, we're not going to support you and we're not voting for you. The problem with that on the other side, the Democratic side, is, I would argue, and I don't think this is anything other than the stark truth at this point, and I don't think you can sugarcoat it in any way. The problem is the Democrats' first concern is not winning. So where is your power? And I truly, I mean, you know, I used to say that half jokingly, but it's the truth. I mean, their first priority is making sure the donors are happy with what they're doing. Their second priority, which goes into upholding that first priority, is to make sure no progressives get through. Make sure nobody who's actually a threat to their apple cart gets through. They spent over, I think, was it 15 or 50, but it was millions of dollars. I forget if it was 1.5 or 5.0, but they spent millions of dollars trying to stop any progressive challengers. Right now, they're doing in the Senate, they're trying to have, you know, so their whole thing about we're not going to go against incumbents. Well, that's BS, because right now they're all going against Ed Markey in the Senate, trying to get a corporate shill Joe Kennedy in there. So that's a bunch of BS. Nancy Pelosi just full-throatedly endorsed Joe Kennedy. So I think the problem with just doing that on the other side, just saying, well, we're not going to vote or this or that. Well, the problem is winning's not their first priority anyway. It's their third. First priority, make sure the donors are happy. Second priority, make sure progressives don't get through, because that would be something that would upset the donors. Third priority, if we can beat a Republican or two while upholding priorities 1 and 2, great. If we can't, apple cart keeps a rolling. Do you think, I hope Nancy Pelosi loses in November, but if she doesn't and she sticks around, do you think she would be bummed out if Donald Trump won re-election? Or do you think she would just see big dollar signs? Like dollar signs would just be dancing around her head? Because Trump is great for fundraising, baby, and they know that.
Yes, it's the revolving door, and that's why we having a hard time making changes, and this is why I tell people we gotta make the harsh difference between the progressive wing of the party and the neoliberal Democratic wing of the party. So I get very upset when I see progressive leaders butting up with the neoliberal politicians. So, for example, when I see the squad will praise Nancy Pelosi and people like, oh, they gotta play politics. I'm like, no, you can't do that. we gotta let people know there is a solid difference between one wing of the party and the other wing of the party. There's one wing of the party that does not support Medicare for all, despite the fact that 88% Democrats support it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this goes back to my point I made earlier about Richard Spencer and why the right-wing activists are so successful in changing their party. Can you imagine a right-wing candidate that ran that was anti-Second Amendment? Now, that's something that's like 90% support in the Republican Party. The idea of that happening is inconceivable. Meanwhile, on the Democratic Party, you can have someone who's opposed to legalized marijuana and Medicare for all, which has support similar to Second Amendment.
You can have pro-life. Tim Kaine was pro-life.
So that's the problem. Like, at what point do we draw the line in the sand ourselves? And right now we have progressive leaders who are playing defense. And they are muddying the waters between them and the Democratic politicians. For example, my criticism of Bernie Sanders is we always knew that Bernie Sanders was going to endorse the Democratic nominee. He said he would. It's in the contract. We knew that. What I didn't know he was going to do, I didn't know he was going to mislead and bullshit people about them. When he says that Kamala Harris is a great progressive, what are you talking about, bro? I knew you was gonna support a nominee, but you don't have to fucking lie about him. When you see progressive politicians saying nice stuff about the squad, not about the squad, but about Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or anybody, I'm like, what tactical advantage do we have by doing that? Because by doing that, you get the illusion to the average normie voter, someone who may otherwise be anti-establishment, that these Democratic Party politicians are more anti-establishment than they are. Well, and you hurt yourself because you make it seem like you're more buddy up with the party than you are. Because so when you have Bernie Sanders that was on the campaign trail, one thing that I didn't like that he would repeat repeatedly the same anti-Trump talking points. And I'm not saying that being anti-Trump talking points is bad, but sometimes Bernie Sanders will go out there. He would say Joe Biden is his good friend, and then he would say Donald Trump is the most corrupt president of all time and the most racist. And honestly, if you listen to a Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg speech, it'd be pretty similar stuff there. So if you have someone who's not like in the trenches of politics, like we are, because we know the policy difference between them. But so if you're just an average person and you hear Bernie Sanders speaking here, I'm just Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. Then you hear Biden talk Trump bad, Trump bad. You're like, oh, I guess there's not that big of a difference. Right. You see how that, and I could be wrong, but I think that could be a little technical error. I think once again, just small adjustments. I think the progressive movement can make that can help us be a little bit more successful when it comes to primarying them and really making the separate difference between them. Because exit polls show that the American people support progressive ideas. They all support Medicare for all, but they thought Joe Biden was the answer. Why did that happen? So that's I'm like,
no, go ahead, finish.
So I was about to say I'm saying why did that happen? I think the reason that happened is because I think progressive leaders accidentally muddied the waters. So when you have people that support Medicare for all in the exit polling, but they vote for Joe Biden, I think it's because we leave the impression that Joe Biden's a friend. Joe Biden is not a friend to the progressive movement in any capacity at all. And I think we need to make that message clear.
Go ahead. Sorry,
go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, I think Bernie's biggest mistake was not, I mean, the whole Joe Biden's my friend, that's extremely annoying. And, it's all in the whole, when you're just repeating, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. Just the one thing that we didn't mention, and I would say this was Bernie Sanders' biggest fault as far as rhetoric on the campaign trail goes, is when he was saying he thinks Biden could win.
Yes.
That's, first of all, just politically, that's something you don't do. The biggest thing is getting rid of Trump, and I could do that, or this other guy could. You're running for office. What the hell are you doing? You're running for frickin' office. But second of all, I don't think he actually believes that. I don't see how Bernie could believe that, because unless this pandemic really gets it to a point where Trump has fumbled it so hard that Trump beats himself, which is possible, but if it doesn't happen, there's no way in hell Biden is going to become president. And notice how I said Biden becomes president, because I refuse to say Joe Biden wins, because that would give the illusion that this is actually a real election. It's not. This election is between Donald Trump and Donald Trump. If Donald Trump beats himself, Joe Biden becomes president. If Donald Trump doesn't beat himself, Donald Trump wins. And that is so pathetically sad that we don't have a competition for a game show host.
Yeah, this election,
it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable when you just strip it down. This is unreal. This is an unacceptable banana republic corporate coup that's become a parody of itself years ago. You couldn't sell this as a dystopian comedy script. And that's why people call me a pundit sometimes. And I don't really care. I don't really give much mind to those terms, but I don't think that's technically what I am or even what you are, because I think a pundit in the technical media news arena sense, they're the people that have to pretend like this system is deserving of any type of reverence or should be taken seriously at all. And that's not me. That's why MSNBC would never hire me. CNN would never hire me. Fox News would never hire me, because you have to actually, you're the person that has to pretend the wrestling match is real.
Yeah, this is how
I don't have to do that. I don't have to pretend the wrestling match is real.
I refuse to accept that it's real. And this is the reality of the situation, because I was on the ground and I've seen how the campaign and how everything actually unfolded. So this whole election was the media establishment versus progressives. And then you branch off. Like, you know how you had a tournament? You had one wing, you had another wing. There was the media and the progressives. You had Donald Trump, he had to buy because he had no primary. And then the media and their chosen candidate beat Bernie. Now the media establishment against Trump. And what I mean by that, I mean CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC. If you don't believe me, look at the money. Follow the money. Follow the donor list. So this is how ridiculous our system, and this is how broken our system is. Joe Biden was funded by Comcast, Time Warner, and big media companies. He had fundraisers, very public fundraisers with those people the days before Super Tuesday. So then all the candidates dropped out. He get endorsements from the Democratic Party because of Barack Obama, by the way. And then the media gives him billions of dollars of free advertisement. When Bernie Sanders won in Nevada, despite being the only nominee in any party to win Iowa, Nevada, and then he won Iowa, Nevada, and then he won Nevada. He won those three states and became the first Democratic nominee.
And they were caught trying to cheat in Iowa.
Yes.
They were.
Yes, and then there was no media coverage. In fact, they were calling us redcoats. Remember Chris Matthews on prime time? We were being smeared as a movement even back then. And then the media, literally being the kingsmaker, decided that election by putting them billions of dollars. So I do want to add that caveat from what I said earlier. There is criticisms to be made of Bernie and his campaign.
Sure.
But I do think Bernie and his campaign ran as good a race, we can say in hindsight. I do think they ran a good race. I do think there's a lot of misinformation going on, because a lot of people say there wasn't a lot of organization in South Carolina. False, son. I was in South Carolina for 5 weeks, and we was knocking on hundreds and thousands of doors. Like, we were breaking records, and I remember I was communicating with the Charleston team. I was in Beaufort. I traveled up there as well. We had a giant canvassing team, and we got Bernie above the 15% threshold, even though he was being crushed back then. But what people don't realize, and this is shown in the exit polls as well, majority of the voters in South Carolina made their decision the last few days because of the Jim Clyburn endorsement. And the media, once again,
well, Bill Clinton thanked him for it.
Yes. And literally, it was like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 60-70% of voters said they made their decision the last few days following the Clyburn endorsement. And that brings me back to my media thing. The media pumped billions of dollars of free advertisement, and I was going to communities who didn't have internet. I would talk to people in South Carolina. I mean, I talked to hundreds of families when I was in South Carolina. I logged in on my Twitter. There are a lot of people that barely knew who Bernie Sanders even was. Like they did, because the media never covers them. There was a massive blackout, and these people barely had internet if they did have internet. And then I'll talk to people when we was converting voters like this, bro. And there was actually a point a week before the vote where we was like neck and neck with Biden. With back up my point earlier. Then the Clyburn endorsement came out, and then the media gave him billions of dollars of free advertisement, and that's when he pulled ahead. So yes, you can criticize Bernie campaign, but you also got to realize that we lost to the media establishment as well, which back up your point where you were saying earlier how Biden has his whole team, and now you got Trump, his team, with his MAGA media, and it's going to be a massive shit show between the both of them. It's going to be a clown show. I don't have a dog in the fight, but that's how we lost. We lost because of the media and their power and the fact they're complicit, and it was pretty much a super PAC of the Joe Biden campaign. We got to be ready for that next time.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I think, was the Bernie campaign perfect? Of course not. Show me a campaign that ever was.
Yeah.
But they had everything stacked against them both times.
Yeah.
I mean, he got cheated twice. At the end of the day, it's like he got cheated twice. That's just what happened. And, I think that one of the things that I would say, if we all want to, kind of have a bit of introspection, Bernie Sanders is a politician. That's the line, that's the lane he has chosen. And it's a different lane than I'm in. It's a different lane than you're in. And I think one of the things that the collective we kind of made a mistake on was we were expecting a reformer to be a revolutionary.
That's a great point.
The people in elected office, no matter who they are, and I'm sure there's been some exceptions throughout history, but I don't think there's ever been an exception in American politics, and I don't think there ever will be. The best you can ask for in a politician is that they're a reformer. They work within the construct of electoral politics to kind of get the type of change they want to see in the world. They are at best a reformer. Most of them aren't even that, but a couple of them are. A reformer is not going to be a revolutionary. And what we really need right now is a revolutionary. The person who leads that is not going to be inside of electoral politics. It's just not going to happen. I think there was a contingent that wanted Bernie to lead that revolution, so to speak. He's just not going to. A reformer is not going to. The revolutionaries are the academics and the activists and the fringe thinkers and the poets and the musicians and the artists and the doers, basically. Those are the revolutionaries. The best thing the reformer can do is listen to the revolutionaries and help make their vision of change a reality. But a reformer is not going to be a revolutionary. Similarly, a revolutionary is not going to be a reformer. There's a reason you don't see those types of people in office. There's a reason for it. They don't belong there.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head regarding the Bernie situation, and that's exactly what I tell people all the time. And the whole conversation regarding cancel culture is mostly annoying bullshit. But I really do believe when I say I don't believe in cancel culture, because when I criticize Bernie, I tell people this: I don't put him on a pedestal, and people who put him on this pedestal where he can't be criticized, they're very annoying to me. Like those people annoy the shit out of me.
Stans in general are the most annoying people on the planet. I mean, I would say they are the most annoying people on social media. Stans, whether you're standing for Bernie, whether you're standing for, especially if you're standing for a politician. Why out of all the entities to stand for would you pick a politician? What's wrong with you? A politician.
I will get shit from the Tulsi and Yang people all the time, because I remember during the primary, I was very openly mostly supportive of them just because I don't like establishing politicians. But I'm like, I call it how I see it, bro. You can take it or leave it. So I call them out and they'll get mad, like, sorry, bro. you don't like it, you can unfollow, because I'm not gonna hold back because you got a crush on your favorite politician. So my whole thing,
I have gotten death threats, and by the way, I was vocally in support of a Tulsi, or a Bernie Tulsi ticket. I was hoping Bernie was going to pick her. Because I think together they would have destroyed Trump. And I think they would have gotten a mandate like we would have not seen. I think it would have been a historically successful ticket. I really do.
Yeah,
I was hoping for a Bernie Tulsi ticket. I have gotten death threats from Tulsi supporters before, simply for saying I preferred Bernie's healthcare plan over hers.
Dude, my whole thing is like, anyone can get it. If anyone make a mistake, I'm gonna criticize you.
And every politician has their stance. Like every politician has stands, and that doesn't reflect every person who supports that politician or every person who voted for that politician. There's a big difference between a supporter and a stan. I'm not a Bernie stan. I'm a Bernie supporter. You know, there's a huge world of difference. And, you know, I mean, everyone has their stands, and they are, in my opinion, the most counterproductive group that there possibly is. And they're a cult, quite frankly. They're a cult.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I criticize the liberals and Democratic Party for doing. I criticize them for that.
They're a much bigger cult.
Yeah, I'm like, don't
problem.
I'm not. If I criticize them for doing it, I'm gonna criticize you for doing it. And that's why you made such a great point earlier that Bernie is a reformer, and that's the point I made earlier when I had my big criticism of Bernie. I'm like, guys, I still like Bernie, but he's a senator. He's like, that's all he is. He's just a fucking senator now, and we are his constituents. He's a senator, and he's gonna do shit that senators do. He's gonna play the game, and when he play the game, I'm gonna criticize him because this is how we push him to the left. Like, and this shouldn't even be explained, but I get shit from people I got respect for, and they be like, "Oh man, I love your page, but I think you keep trying to divide." I'm not being divisive. This is how you move people to the left. This is how you get people to think the way that you do, is that you go after them and you praise them when they need to be praised. Because when Bernie when he laid this smack down on Elon Musk a few weeks ago, like, yeah, let's go Bernie. And I remember I said like that when Elon Musk and Bernie had their little feud, that shows exactly how the progressive movement should work. Only we can criticize Bernie, but once we get some sort of billionaire fuck or some sort of right-wing fuck who criticize our progressives, that when we join together as a group and we go after them, that's how it works. If you're not a progressive, you can't criticize Bernie in my mind. But if you're one of us, if you're part of the people who are good faith actors, go all in. That's my position on that, and that's how I'm gonna continue to run my page at least.
I feel you, man. I mean, and if we're being brutally honest, like if we're just being totally brutally honest, there's some people, and this is getting kind of inside just the social media landscape that we all need to escape from occasionally and realize it is in fact not the real world. But, you know, I think there are some people where it's like they don't actually care about change. They kind of just want a group to be part of. You know what I mean? Is that fair, or is that like being a little harsh?
That's perfect. That's perfect, because that's the church-like community that people always look for. Something doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be perfect, but people like to have that group thing that make their life easier. It's easier to just believe that the Democratic Party is going to save us. And people always, even people I went over after they hear what I gotta say, they will say stuff like, "Okay, what's the solution then, Nick? What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "Oh no, I don't have a fucking solution. This is not a Disney movie. I'll tell you how it is. I can give you some options. I don't know which one of the best options, but not everything in politics is gonna be a perfect band-aid." And I think that's what a lot of people look for. So that's why people who just want to get rid of Trump, they think just getting rid of Trump is gonna be the band-aid. They want that to be the easy solution. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. And that's the point I always want to get across.
That's absolutely right. It's not that simple, because the solution isn't just showing up and casting a ballot. You know, the solution is we have to have a general strike. We have to have a rent strike. We need to be out in the streets. You know, one thing that I wish Bernie would have said differently to all of his supporters is when he was making that whole like, oh, Joe Biden could be he could be our FDR. That was just comically ridiculous. Now, FDR was not really some huge lefty. He just had the foresight to say, hey, all those people out there that are really, really ticked off with pitchforks, listen up, rich people. You're either going to give up a little bit or I ain't going to be able to stop them. So this is what we need to do. Was he some like huge lefty himself? Not necessarily, but he had the foresight to realize what needed done. Joe Biden does not have that. And I think pretending he does is nothing short of humorous. But what you could have said, an analogy you could have made that I think would have mobilized more people to get out in the streets, and some of them will vote for Biden, some of them won't. That's just, leaving electoral politics to the side. Saying that Joe Biden could be our LBJ, meaning LBJ was a horrible dude who had horrible policies and horrible ideas. But he signed some good pieces of legislation because he was scared shitless about what was going on around him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would have been a message that would have, I think, mobilized more people to just get out there and protest and realize, okay, if Biden's going to be our next president, the only way anything effective is going to happen is if we're out there and he can't ignore us.
And
I just think that would have been a more effective message to give to people.
Yeah, and the point you made earlier, this is why I'm not a big fan of voter shaming, because there are some progressives, especially I know some friends that live in Florida and that live in some swing states that, man, they have a really hard decision to make, right? And I get it, man. I'm not an advocate of voting for lesser two evils. 2012 was the last time I did it, and I felt like shit because I felt complicit to everything that Obama did. But that's my personal story,
dude. I fell for Obama longer than I should have. I really did. I mean, I was like, well, it's just because he's going to be gloves off this time, 2012. And
I used to convince myself that the reason why he wasn't effective was because Republican obstruction. Like I used to like, well, he would be doing better things if it wasn't for Republicans, but I completely ignore all the bipartisan horrible stuff he did. But that's beside the point. My point I was making was, if you want to make the case that we should vote for Joe Biden, you can do it. But what annoys me is people who bullshit me. And that's the point you were kind of making earlier. If you want to say we should vote for Joe Biden because Donald Trump is ultra destructive and we won't get anything done with him as a leader anyway, and even though Joe Biden might not be pushed to the left, at least he might be a little bit sympathetic. If you want to make those arguments, fine. Okay, I get it. I don't 100% agree with you, but I get it. But if you want to say that Joe Biden is going to be the most progressive president of all time, if you want to say stuff that Joe Biden is a decent guy and Joe Biden cares about black families, if you want to start saying stuff like that, now I feel like you're bullshitting me. And then I start to get annoyed. So that's when I'm like, okay, say we should vote for Joe Biden. We're horrible. Because Trump is horrible and we must stop him. And then that's a legit argument to make because I'm a super anti-Biden and anti-Democrat because they have policies that hurt my homies' lives and hurt my life. And I've seen victims. So if you're a victim of the Trump administration, or if you surrounded by a bunch of MAGA idiots, you want to shut up. If you got a bunch of MAGA people at co-work that you work with, you want to shut them up. Fine, vote for Joe Biden. I haven't unfollowed one person ever since Bernie lost. I haven't one person because they said they wasn't going to vote for Biden. I don't care. Vote shaming is not my interest. I'll make the aggressive case that we should vote for third party and we should look for solutions outside the Democrat Party because that's what I think we should do. But I think that we should do. Make your case and leave it at that. But once you start vote shaming and once you start bullshitting people about who Joe Biden is, and once you start saying shit that, well, Joe Biden will care about climate change. Joe Biden still supports fracking. Stop bullshitting us. like that. You're bullshitting us when you say stuff like that. When you say that Black Lives Matter will have an easier time under Joe Biden when he supports increasing police budgets, he still supports the new Jim Crow. You're bullshitting me. He's starting to annoy me. So that's what annoys me when I see progressive pitch Biden, and not the fact that they do it. It's how they're doing it. And once again, we all knew that Bernie was going to do it. We already knew he was going to endorse the nominee. I just didn't think he would do PR for the Democratic Party. I thought he was just like, yeah, we need to beat Trump. Let's back Biden and try and push him up.
Yeah,
you can't be mad with him for him saying that, right? It's not they're not offensive to me if he said that, but it's saying he to be FDR. I'm like, all right, dude, you sound like a politician now, bro.
I can't be mad at him for the lane he's chosen, and there's a certain understanding of this is how he's going to work within that lane. But I do think that he hasn't always gone about it the way I would have liked to have seen it, and I think that's a fair criticism. I don't think that's an unfair criticism. I don't think any of the criticisms that you said, I don't think any of the criticisms that I said are unfair at all. I don't think Bernie would have won otherwise, because I think the cheating was just too much to overcome. Yeah. But, I do think that, moving forward, we need to kind of we need to do an autopsy regardless to kind of move forward and see what this means moving forward, and kind of realize that it's going to take a lot more than electoral politics and just staying in that lane and expecting a reformer to be a revolutionary to get a Bernie Sanders style presidency. It's just going to take a lot more. And that's why I think we need a new party altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm not, like I said, I can make the criticism of Bernie because I still like Bernie. And I still think Bernie is going to be a very effective force for the left during Biden's administration as a senator. And once again, this is my own personal theory.
Do you think Biden's going to win? Or do you think Biden will become president? And again, I got to follow my rule here. I don't think it's
COVID. Before COVID, I would have picked Trump to beat Biden, but I'm watching the Trump campaign, and I'm like, man, dude, I can't believe you guys are this bad.
It's terrible. I'm just objectively saying I don't think he's going anywhere.
So to me, it's a race up to the bottom. I think both campaigns are horrible. So if you're one of the people that don't think Joe Biden's going to win, you're not going to see me fight you on that, because I'm like, yeah, Joe Biden campaign is pretty goddamn horrible. But when I see Trump trying to pretend that Joe Biden is some sort of Antifa secret grandpa or something,
I wish.
I'm like, dude, that is not the strategy.
I'm like, I wish all that was true. When they're just like, he's really a radical socialist planning. I wish. Do you know, you guys are doing better campaigning for that guy than he is. I wish any of that was remotely true.
The first day of the Republican National Convention was straight PR for Joe Biden. Like that, I was watching the thing like, oh my God, you guys don't not attack him. In 2016, I give credit to Steve Bannon now, because obviously it was him, because he actually attacked Hillary on some real shit. He called out the Hillary Clinton Foundation corruption. He called out her for her war hawk foreign policy on trade. So he actually had like real attacks. And now when he attacking Joe Biden, he said Joe Biden supports defunding the police. Joe Biden literally supports increasing the police budget.
Yeah, he does.
So you're talking incoherent.
It's funny you say the RNC, the first day of the RNC was just PR for Joe Biden. You know what's crazy? The DNC made his numbers lower. His numbers are lower.
Yes, good point.
DNC.
RNC is trying to help him.
Huh?
And now the RNC is helping them out now, because
it's
funny because I was making the jokes, and I mean this is the only evidence we have so far. He picks Kamala Harris as a VP, and all of a sudden the polls in battleground states are tightening it up. It's like, ooh, is that because of Kamala, or is that because of the VP convention? Who knows? We see, and the debates haven't even started yet. and we see.
Yeah, I think unless something, and I agree with you that before COVID, there was just no chance in hell. I mean, before COVID really, got as crazy as it's gotten and continues to be, there's no way, Trump's going to be president again. Now with COVID, you never know. And there was one point where I thought, well, I think Trump's going to beat himself. Right now, I think if the election were held tonight, Trump's not going anywhere. Could that change between now and November because of the, uncircumstantial moment of our times, or the unprecedented moment of our times, rather? Yeah, it could. But again, if 28 million people lose their homes, or they're 28 to 40, that's like the range of people who are set to lose their homes. It wouldn't matter if it was Trump v. Biden. It wouldn't matter if it was Bush v. Bernie. I'm just saying, regardless how I feel about any of the candidates involved, a Republican incumbent just isn't going to lose if that many people lose their homes while we're voting during a pandemic. It's just not going to happen.
And this is why I go back and forth on this all the time, man, because I was just seeing both of these campaigns being ran by clowns. And can you imagine how fast this election would have been over if Donald Trump would have, because he floated this idea at the beginning of COVID. He said we should have Medicare for all who have COVID, not even Medicare for all, just for the people who have COVID. He's like, well, we just take care of the hospital bills of the people who had COVID. And that plus the Trump bucks, do you remember the whole Trump buck sensation?
Yeah.
That was meager. That was fucking nothing. Trump gave us nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And people
the
was
entire government
about
was on it.
And people were excited over him giving them nothing. So can you imagine if Trump did Medicare for all who had COVID and he did the Trump bucks but made it monthly? This election would have been over.
If he did, and I've said that. I've said that too. I was like, and that's a weird situation to be in because, the fact that Trump is president nauseates me. And I certainly, in November, I'm just already prepared. I'm going to be depressed no matter what happens.
Yes.
I'm going to be like, it is a loss no matter what happens. It's just what enemy am I preparing for, basically, which I feel like would be a much more constructive society as far as change is concerned, systemic change is concerned. If instead of focusing on bickering about the lesser of two evils, let's instead prepare for the upcoming evil and know how we're going to fight it. Yeah. To me, that's just a little more constructive. But, you get called. Somehow that makes you divisive when you say those kind of things. Somehow that's divisive. Instead of saying, hey, we're all on the same team and they're not on our team. So we need to figure out damage control and how we're going to move forward as a society. It's more divisive to say, no. Tell me which boot tastes better.
So, in November for me, I'm going to laugh no matter who loses. If Trump loses, dude, I'm going to laugh my ass off at MAGA, bro. I'm going to talk at so much shit at MAGA. I cannot wait.
That's a good way to look at it. Be like, well, I'll just be laughing at people.
Yeah, and if Biden loses, bro, I'm going to be on. But I'm gonna laugh so hard at Biden Bros, K-Hive, and all of them. So at the end of the day, I mourn for my family after Super Tuesday. I mourn for our country after Super Tuesday. Me too. Super Tuesday was November the 4th after we lost. In my opinion.
That was
because I remember I will never even forget that feeling I had when I read the headline. When I started reading the poll results.
God, I'm getting
because that's when I'm like, that's when to me I was like, we lost. Oh, it's over. We're fucked.
Yeah.
So.
Me too. We did a live stream. We did a live stream that day. It was me, Graham Elwood, and Dave Anthony. If you know the Dollop podcast, and we just did a live stream, and we were all just kind of shell shocked. Like we were just this. Well, okay. Oh my. Over. And you want to tell me this was a genuine process? A guy who was barely showing up in the top 5. Joe Biden, barely in the top 5 in any of the states. All of a sudden, this fluke thing happens in South Carolina, and everybody just falls in line. The media inflates this fake Joe Mentum story, and then all of a sudden, he just dominates. It's just...
It's gonna be a moment that scars the progressive movement for a long time. I talk to people and like, man, it's like the JFK moment. Everyone remember what it was when they heard the Super Tuesday results. Like you told me your story.
No shit, man.
I remember I was hanging out with some Bernie people at our headquarters, and the results start coming in. We're like, fuck, man, it's over. It's over. And then ever since then, I've just been on this race tweeting spree. It literally haven't ended. Now, you would think like a few months after Super Tuesday, like, all right, I might calm down a little bit. I might look at the situation. No, I am still mad, dude. It never ended.
But you know what? You know what, though? It could also be like the biggest teaching moment we could ask for. The biggest teaching moment of, again, don't expect a reformer to lead the revolution we need. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Don't stand for any politicians. It's counterproductive and foolish. And also, this is the type of action we need to ever entertain the fantasy of a Bernie Sanders style presidency. It's not unattainable. It's not impossible. But without all these other factors, when you think about, you can draw it back to FDR. They had huge mobilized mass movements going around that made him act the way he did. And we can do that now. We have the moment to do that now and get the type of ally president that we need in 2024. It's not going to happen in 2020, but in 2024. So here's hoping. Here's hoping that we take that message.
The good news is, because I'm not going to make it all doom and gloom. When I saw how Bernie ran his 20 campaign, like I said, you can have criticisms, but I do think he ran a good campaign, better than all the other candidates. Biden won despite massive media propping him up and a lot of shenanigans that you laid out just now. But I saw improvements from the 16 campaign. I seen change of messaging. I saw the change of media strategy.
Yeah.
And I think after 2020, I think we're gonna adjust again, and we're gonna see. I think now we know what their game plan is gonna be. They stack the field with centrists. They all drop out doors. Pile billions of money in media. That's how we lost.
Well, and that's how they make sure the super delegates can show up. They make sure. I mean, the other way that they really cheated us the second time, there was that little clause in there where the super delegates, if there's a defined winner, then they can go. So now, not only were they able to just, orchestrate this Joe-mentum thing to have like, oh, we have a clear winner now, but now they were also able to do that to take more delegates away from Bernie because, now the super delegates can just weigh in. We have a clear winner. So they took Bernie got less delegates than he should have in California because of that.
And once again, and people are seeing this. Organizers and activists and candidates are seeing this. And I think now we're seeing progressive candidates win in this election. I think in 2022, especially riding the wave of massive poverty we're about to experience. I think 2022 and 2024 have potentials to be a progressive wave we haven't seen before. If we can capitalize on these things we learned after this election, we got to figure out a way how to overcome the massive corporate media bias and their ability to pump billions in campaign and money and their chosen candidates of choice. But we already seen that starting to backfire because the boomers are slowly going to get older and die out. We see Gen Z, which is a monster right now of progressive firebrands who don't listen to mainstream media. So I think we have the demographics on our side for change in this coming decade. The main thing, we need to get it done fast enough to save lives because we got a climate disaster going on right now. So if you ask me, I think it's going to happen. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you look at public perception of actual policy goals.
Do you think we need a new party?
Yes.
Do you think we need to build a new party?
I think we should take all our shots. And what annoys me is when people is hardcore one way or another. And what I mean by that, I see people say, I will not support anyone that run in the Democratic Party. What? So you told me you wouldn't vote for Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman?
Right.
So you've been
Buttar? Yeah.
Yeah, you've been stupid. So I told people I will vote for progressive no matter where they ran.
Me too. Me too.
I didn't know that much about Vermin Supreme. I thought he was a joke. I remember I actually talked to someone who was a Vermin Supreme supporter.
I don't know much about him.
See, this thing, I didn't know that much about him, but then someone told me, and I didn't really look into it that much because he ended up losing the nomination. But I heard that he was actually, because I was like, he must be a joke. Someone explained to me that he was actually a libertarian socialist, like me. That's how I would describe my politics, more libertarian leaning with socialist economic background. But they said Vermin Supreme, what he was trying to do, he was trying to take over the Libertarian Party and make it more libertarian left instead of libertarian retard, which is pretty much what it is right now. It's just a stupid party that has economics that's arguably worse than neoliberalism. If you ask me, I actually prefer neoliberal capitalism to what the Libertarian Party espouses now, because pretty much what they espouse now is feudalism. So what Vermin Supreme wanted to do, he wanted to go libertarian left, which was support Medicare for all, support more economic populist ideas. If he wanted to do that, I honestly might have supported him. If he, based on his policy, I didn't do that much vetting into him. I just had someone explain to me the situation, but he ended up losing, and they have that what's her name, Johnson, whatever her name is. She's a trash libertarian candidate. Don't support Medicare for all. But my main point is, no matter what party you ran in, if you have someone who support Medicare for all, end the wars, climate action, I will support you, dude. And people who say we should do one thing and only that thing, only support the progressive run Democrat Party, only support the People Party, only support the Green Party. I feel like you're just playing the team sport at that point. So I'm gonna just support progressive no matter what situation they're in, whether they running as a Democrat or they to be in the People's Party. So I think that's the mindset most people should have.
Well, I think that like a lot of people, someone said to me, like, well, why are you happy when, like I was happy when Cory Bush won, and people were like, well, why were you happy about that? Because you want a new party. You think we need a new party. So why are you happy that Cory Bush won? And I was like, well, because progressives winning is still a win. And here's why strategically I would be happy about that, because like right now, there's really not a lot of other options, first of all. And second of all, look, if let's say a new party is successful, movement is successful, which I hope they are, and I'm trying to do everything I can to help. So if they are, you have scenarios here that create that. First of all, one scenario is they just destroy the Democratic Party, basically, which happened historically with the Whigs. The Republican Democrats used to be one party. Spoiler alert, they still kind of are. But they used to literally be one party. And then they broke off because everyone was so upset with the Whigs. And it just like the Whigs just kind of destroyed themselves. That could happen with a new party. And then you have these progressives that have already infiltrated the Democrats. They switch over. They become MPP members. That's one scenario. Another scenario, we actually get a multi-party system like a lot of other democracies where we have, and then probably ranked choice voting will become the lay of the land, which I want it to be. And then when you have that, you have the benefit of alliances, meaning the progressives that have infiltrated the Democrats will form alliances with MPPs and Greens and whoever else. And that's what a lot of other systems, they have stuff like that. They have alliances between different parties that have like-minded people within the different parties. And then that would force the Democratic Party, if it still exists, because we have 4 parties or 5 parties, it would have to actually be a centrist party instead of the right-wing party it is now. It would actually have to be what they claim to be.
You nailed it, brother. You nailed it. And every single progressive should be calling for ranked choice voting right now.
Oh, I'm with you.
Having ranked choice voting will solve all these issues, just like that. Because as you mentioned before, once again, the party you run under does not mean a goddamn thing to me. I just want to know what policy you support. And as you mentioned earlier, imagine we had this a scenario where we had a Green Party, someone from the Green Party elected. We have a few members of the People Party elected, and you have a new squad who caucus with Democrats. And then we have this big vote on Medicare for all. They're all going to come together and form this coalition anyway. So I don't see what the exception. Why we need focus on the party affiliation so much. I was advocating for taking over the Green Party, but I do like what I see with the movement of People Party. So I'm very supportive of them. But my main thing is I don't choose a side. I just want to support anyone we can to destroy the two-party duopoly as we know it. So I famously joke because people always saying if you vote for third party or Green Party, you waste your vote. I view my vote as me standing on my principles because we don't have that much power as it is anyway. We are effective oligarchy, as you will. So I don't understand why anyone would give away the little bit of power that we do have. You would give that to Joe Biden and his 100 billionaire donors. So that's why I jokingly said if you're voting and you're not voting to destroy the two-party duopoly, that's a waste of vote. Because honestly, if you continue the same system we get in, the same shit system we're gonna get out at the end of the day. I think we just gotta have progressive win, and with a larger coalition, we already see it now. I've seen it with Rashid Tlaib and some of the actions that the squad has been making recently. I think the fact that they know that they're electoral juggernauts now, that they're safe and they can win in landslides, I think it opens them up a little bit more. So I had a lot of criticism of the squad the first 2 years, but I tell people once again to don't cancel them because now I think they know how powerful they are. And we've seen with Rashid Tlaib, she recently refused to endorse Joe Biden. She's bucking the party. She voted against.
She's the only one, I think, too.
Yeah,
isn't she the only one?
Yeah, and I think with Jamal Bowman, I remember he was on a Bernie Sanders stream, and I remember that video clip went viral where he literally told Bernie Sanders to his face, he was like, "Hey, yo, the Democrat Party rigged it from you." And now you're seeing people who are willing. I think the squad will be more willing to be more anti-establishment once they confirm the political power. And even though I want them to, don't get me wrong, I want them to go guns blazing, but I think now after their giant election wins, I think we may see them challenge the party more, especially under a Joe Biden administration. If they don't, then trust me, I'm going to be on their ass. Like I have been on their ass a lot of this year. But I think that's the long-term strategy in terms of what we need to do is just elect as many progressives as possible. But once again, just don't bullshit people and thinking that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is going to be your ally or that the Democratic Party will be the way out for us. It's not. Any victory we get is just exactly that. It's just a small victory. They'll go back to the drawing board. Just because Cory Bush won doesn't mean the party is going to embrace us. So we just got to keep grinding, keep working. And it seemed, I mean, I had thoughts of like, man, what the fucking point of this shit? Well, what else can we do? I'm not going to just sit here and let the ruling class do whatever they want. So right. I'm gonna vote for a candidate, even though I don't think they're gonna win. I'm gonna still support them because I'm not gonna. What's the alternative? I'm not gonna fall in line. To me, that concept, like I said, my mind works differently. Like that concept doesn't make sense to me. The idea of just falling in line and hoping for the best. Like I studied too much history. I've seen how they play their games. I'm not sold on that as being a viable way of change. And if people who support voting for Biden as a progressive, I get it, bro. We just don't agree on that point, and that's the point I'll make to people, and that's why I don't get mad at people who are voting for Biden because I get it. I just don't agree.
I feel you, man. So shout out to some super chatters here. First of all, Sam Dean. Good day, Ron. I just turned 41. Any advice for the future? Plant seeds and happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sam Dean. I hope all is well in Australia. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. Thanks for tuning into this show for your birthday. And I hope you have a great one, man. Happy birthday. And plant some seeds. That's my advice for the future. Mm-hmm. I, of course, live in a one-bedroom in Southern California, so I don't even have that option available to me. So I can't take my own advice, but oh well. And then you go on to say, just floating this idea, Ron starts a heavy rock band called Twisted Ginger. I'm for it. Edwin Dennis, what's up, buddy? Richard Spencer is anti-Semitic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's anti-Semitic. He's a white supremacist. He is awful. Probably doesn't like Trump/Garland Heights. Is this true? So Edwin goes on to say he wants Medicare for all, but only for ethno-states. I don't know if that's actually true or if that's just like a really dark joke. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's like just a really because that's kind of, if that is true, that's very, I mean, that's kind of funny.
I mean, I guess it's better than the alternative, right? He'll not win if it's.
I don't think so. I don't think so. That would be if he's just like, hey, I'm just like you. I like Medicare for all. That people are like, what? And he goes, well, just for white people. Like, dude, real? He's like, no. Hear me out. Well, it's cheaper if it's just one group of people. We're like, you're disgusting. Please stop talking. No. Wait for it. No, we're not. We're done listening to you. Shut up. I mean, that would be kind of. I don't know if that's actually true or if they were just like being hyperbolic. But that would be kind of funny if it's like he has like he runs for something. Richard Spencer runs for something, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm for Medicare for all." And it's in like big letters, and people are like, "What?" And then in small letters, he's like, "Just white people, just white people. Only white people get it. No one else."
Don't want to come across as too liberal.
Nick, where can people go to learn more about you?
You can check me out on Twitter, SocialistMMA. Also have a YouTube page, The Progressive Martial Artist as well. So check me out. I got a lot to say.
Cool, buddy. Well, thanks for doing this show today. It was really awesome to talk to you. Check him out on Twitter, SocialistMMA. There you can find all the content he's got out there, including some MMA tips. including some MMA tips. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. Happy birthday, buddy. And thank you, Edwin, for the Super Chat contributions. You guys keep this show on the air. If you also are interested in helping keep this show on the air, patreon.com/Ron Placone. For you give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content, including a theme song if you want one. That's right. I'm making theme songs for my patrons. Among other things, I do a Zoom show just for patrons once a week. I do a patron stream once a week. And you can get all that for a give what you can level. It's a give what you can level. So whatever you're comfortable with. If you are on stable ground and are interested in Able, patreon.com/Ron Placone. Thank you so much, Nick. Check him out, Socialist MMA. We'll be back tomorrow. And we're going to be talking to Thomas Frank about his new book, which is all about populism. I read it, and I can't wait to talk to him. Turns out populism has been demonized for decades and decades and decades. And this whole right-wing populism thing is just a sham. That's not real populism. I've been saying that on this show for a long time. Thomas Frank wrote a book that really amplifies all that, and it's a beautiful book. I can't wait to talk to him about it. That's happening tomorrow. And in the meantime, check out Nick, Socialist MMA. You guys know the drill in the meantime. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.